Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back, all you fabulous fighting fantasy aficionados, for yet another episode of Fighting Fantasy Fun as we start playing Creature of Havoc. And in this one, I believe you actually are the monster, possibly. As you may notice, unlike on most other fighting fantasy books, it doesn't say at the bottom, you are the hero. It doesn't say anything. So, I don't know so much about this book yet, but I'll figure it out as I go along. And I think that is actually part of the story in this one. You start out really not knowing what's going on, which is quite an interesting little twist. So, yeah, let's get started, shall we? Yeah. Oh, right, here we are on my desk. Got my book, got my character sheet, map, pens, pencil, dice, and a nice cup of tea, which is almost empty already because I've been drinking my tea while I was setting up for making this video. Okay. So in this one we have our usual stats, I think. Let's see, so skill, stamina, and luck. Skill 11, stamina 22, and luck is a reasonable 9. Not bad stats at all. Let's have a little look and see. Because you are a monster in this one, just check. There aren't any other special rules I need to check up on. Battles look like it is standard. Oh, what's this one? Instant death. As you learn more about yourself during the adventure, you will realize that you are an extremely powerful creature, capable of killing most opponents with a single blow. If you roll a double when rolling for your attack strength, then you have landed such a death-dealing blow. Your opponent will die instantly without the need to resolve the particular attack round you are in. Which means every round you got a 1 in 6 chance of actually just immediately killing your opponent, which is quite extreme. I might forget that, so yeah. But if I do forget that, please remind me when I get to that. Fighting more than one opponent, standard, luck, standard, and then we have. Oh, hang on. It looks like we have a huge background section here. Which means that I'll read this. I think what I'll do is I'll read this only once. I'll record this only once, and then I'll paste that into my future videos of this, and you can skip it if you want to, of course, if you have seen it before. So I'll do a recording of the background here. This is how many pages now? It's almost 20 pages, actually. So I'm going to do that once, and then I'll paste that into future videos. So I'll just do that now. I'll just do a little transition. The Creature of Havoc adventure takes place in the region of Alancia where the dusty Windward Plain meets Trolltooth Pass. North of the pass, the forest of spiders and the Moonstone Hills hide dark secrets. This is the region that the necromancer Jaradan Mar considers his own. To the south, the town of Salamonis stands as the last vestige of civilization before the rolling hills become the mountainous reaches of Baltus Dyer's Cragen Heights. Westwards, the featureless Windward Plain leads the way towards Port Blacksand and the Western Ocean. The plain is a vital trade route between Eastern Alancia and both Western Alancia and the Old World. Wares are brought to the west by merchants' caravans, which are heavily guarded by hired warriors known as strong-arms, whose job is to see that the caravans pass safely across the flatlands, those treacherous wastes east of Trolltooth Pass. Once through the pass, the strong-arms leave the caravans at Chalice or Silverton and pick up another caravan making the return journey. Some prefer the peace and quiet of smaller villages like Coven and Drystone, but not even the most courageous strong-arm will stay near Dree, home of the witch women. Dree, village of the witch women. A dark village nestling in the fork of two rivers like a viper in its nest. Dree is a magnet for miscreants and black-hearted creatures. It came into being originally as the home of the exiled hag witch, Romina Dree, who had been banished from the town of Salamonis for her hideous magical experiments. Not content with the more acceptable forms of witchcraft, curses, foretelling the future, love potions, and herbal remedies, she turned her attentions to the essence of life itself. Romina Dree developed a fascination for what became known as Maranga, the transplanting of limbs and organs from one creature to another by magical means, and was obsessed by the desire to create a sort of hybrid super creature. Her magic was used on both men and beasts, and it left many mutant mixtures of each species suffering in the gutters of Salamones. Her vile witchcraft was branded as an unholy insult to the sanctity of life. She was on the verge of displeasing the gods of Salamonis, thus she was banished from the town. She was taken in chains to a place far north of Salamonis and there released. This place was in the fork between the Diddlewater and Spider rivers, and there Romina Dree made her home and continued her experiments. Though exiled from Salamonis, she was not without her devotees, and many of her fellow hag witches from Salamonis made the pilgrimage to visit or even join Romina in Dree. As the growing village became known, and from other areas of Alancia, witch women joined the growing community where they could practice their black arts freely and learn more of the developing art of Maranga from Romina herself. Outsiders who sailed the Diddlewater and happened across the witch women's village were horrified at the sight they saw. Semi-creatures with dreadful deformities were left in the streets to suffer, indescribable monsters which by rights should never have seen life at all, but were now doomed to scratch a living in the gutters of Dree. This they did by murdering and feeding off other creatures whose mutations were such that they could not defend themselves or escape. Hell itself could surely not boast that its minions were as wretched as the Maranga-spawned creatures of Dree. The witch women revelled in their creations. In their eyes, such suffering was inevitable, and they considered their creations no more than living vegetables, unworthy of pity. The creatures were eaten as food, or kept as pets, or used as subjects in further Maranga experiments. Later, the most hideous were sold to visiting merchants and traders as curiosities, and many are to be seen in the travelling circuses which tour Alancia. Dree's notoriety spread, and the greedy eyes of opportunistic traders turned towards the village. Trading in witchcraft was a time-consuming business, since witches tend to be hermit-like creatures, living alone in obscure places. If trade links could be established with Dree, how convenient it would be to buy potions, charms, curses, and enchanted objects from a single place. Or so merchants thought, but setting up trading links was not easy. All visitors to Dree who were not practicing witches were at first greeted warmly, but when the crafty witches felt their visitor had relaxed his guard, a simple potion was administered to enable him to be captured easily. This was how the witches acquired fresh subjects for their experiments. The first trader to venture into Dree and survive was Ganga of Mirewater. His enterprise was to be admired, and he made handsome profits from his trading. He was the first to realize that the only way to trade successfully was to enter Dree with goods the witches valued, but could not get elsewhere. He scoffed at his foreigners who took in exotic fruits, jewels, fine silks, and spices. Each one had finished up with a clawbeast's arm, a lizard man's face, or a mungee's brain, if he was allowed to live at all. Ganga took in not spices but herbs, scullyweed, medusa grass, curse leaf, purity plant, and the like. He took in dried goblin livers, manticore stings, elf eyes, and pulped flesh grub juice. The witches became willing partners in his trading activities, and it was many years before other traders appeared with similar items of witchcraft and deprived him of his profitable monopoly. But by then, Ganga had already made his fortune. The women of Dree. The witch women formed an insular community. They very rarely leave the village of Dree, and usually then only in spiritual form. However, Romina's younger sisters delighted in appearing to the world outside. These three, known as the Women of Dree, have become infamous around Trolltooth Pass for appearing to travelers and strong arms to warn them of something or send them on missions. Their unexpected appearance is terrifying and may lead an unwary traveler to distrust them. Certainly, they are known to have sent many an adventurer on a pointless mission merely in jest. But they do seem to have some sort of maternal instinct towards mankind, and they are probably feared more than they ought to be. There is no evidence of their actually causing harm to those whom they have chosen to meet, unlike their neighbors in Dree. The rest of the world would be happy to leave Dree alone, so long as the women kept to themselves, but one or two witches have been known to leave Dree and settle in the lands of men. Usually they establish themselves in harmless occupations as herbalists, like Betriana in the forest of Yor, fortune tellers like Rosina near Coven, or cooks like the sisters of Sheena in Baltus Dyer's citadel. But occasionally one of the witch women will leave Dree in search of mischief. This was the origin of the ill repute of the village, and more recently, with the strengthening of Jaradan Mar's power, Dree has earned the abject hatred of the peoples of Trolltooth Pass. Jaradan Mar, the necromancer. It was Romina's sisters who secretly raised the infant Jaradan. No one knows who fathered the child, but the most likely candidate is one of the numerous hell demons conjured up by the witch women during their black masses. Some, however, prefer to believe that the necromancer is merely a product of another of the Maranga experiments. Being the only man-child in a village of witch-women, the sisters removed him from the village and raised him somewhere in the Moonstone Hills. When he was old enough, Jaradan was sent east into the flatlands to be educated. He had already shown skill in simple sorcery, and the witches wished him to study the magic arts under a teacher of great repute. This man was Volgera Darkstorm, and the young Jaradan was accepted as his pupil, along with two others, Baltus Dyer and Zagor. The three of them studied hard and perfected the black arts with a skill which Darkstorm had never seen in any of his previous pupils. The three became both friends and rivals, each respecting the other's skills, but each striving to prove that his were the greatest. It was during his studies that Jaradan changed his name. Jaradan Dree, as he was called, was a name that embarrassed him. Dree was the village of witches, and the name was a constant reminder of the primitive magic with its simple herbalism and curses. The only interest Jaradan had in his home was the witch's fascination with Maranga, a subject that obsessed him. He changed his name with a single spell which he had learned especially from an ancient black magic tome. One midsummer night he locked himself away from sunset to sunrise to complete the ritual. When he emerged, Jaradan Dree was a name which had been erased from the minds of everyone who had ever heard of it. Instead, from that time onwards, all knew of the young man as Jaradan Mar. Mar and his co-pupils learned at a rate which astonished the aging Darkstorm, who soon became fearful of their powers. When they sensed their mentor's weakness, the three eventually turned their allegiance from him towards themselves, and they reveled in the power that their new skills brought. In their own minds, they became powerful demigods, scornful of the pathetic world around them. When Volguera Darkstorm realized how dangerous his pupils were becoming, he tried to stop them. The result was a short, bloody battle of magic between them, which ended as the Demonic Three, as they called themselves collectively, cut down their teacher with a carefully disguised Rain of Knives spell. After looting the old wizard's library, the young sorcerers fled Darkstorm's home and headed east towards Trolltooth Pass. From there they sought refuge in Darkwood Forest, where they eventually split up to continue on their own separate ways. Coven. Jaradan Ma disguised himself as a prospector and headed south towards the village of Coven, a half-day's journey from his home in Dree. Though his disguise was merely a sham to enable him to build an underground stronghold for his future operations, he was astonished to find gold deposits in the ground. He immediately realized that with gold he could recruit an army, and soon his Yellowstone mines were making him a powerful and wealthy man. His real ambition, however, was not to become merely wealthy, but to rule over his own empire and eventually over the whole of Valencia. But this he could not do alone. He had already recruited Valaska Rue, a well-rounded human with a fiery temper, to supervise his mines. Rue was a scruffy character, but he had a will of iron and shared Mar's thirst for power. His loyalty to his master persuaded Mar to share his secret ambitions with Rue, and between them, the two of them laid plans of conquest. Valaska Rue was dispatched to find suitable officers for Mar's army. Meanwhile, Mar himself was deep in thought. He had recently heard a story which was occupying his mind. Hanicus, a wizard of neutral alignment, had arrived in Coven to gather supplies to take back to his home in Knot Oak Wood. During his visit, he had bumped into Jaradan Mar. After some hours of talk, Mar offered Hanicus a position within his underground complex, looking after the area in which he held his office, outside the mines. Hanicus gratefully accepted. Mar realized that the wizard knew much about the surrounding regions, and he pressed Hanicus for more and more of his knowledge. Among other tales, Hanicus told Jaradan the legend of the Vapors of Stittle Woad, the Rainbow Ponds. Hidden deep within the dark depths of the Forest of Spiders, sheltered from prying eyes by tall spear-tipped trees, is an enchanted glade. Though outsiders have never seen this glade, thus no story can ever fully be believed, it is said to contain a number of beautiful rock pools, as if designed by the gods themselves. Each pool is decorated with brightly colored flowers which bloom throughout the seasons. Tall orange lilies, scented with sweet perfumes, rise from the waters. Each pool is fringed with bouquets of colorful peacock flowers, and shining silver bells are scattered around them, tinkling faintly as the wind disturbs their delicate silver flowers. The pools are wondrous to behold in their full splendor, and are known as the Rainbow Ponds. But the Rainbow Ponds are so called not because of their adornment, but by the most beautiful flowers in the whole of Valencia, but rather because of the waters contained within the pools themselves. For each of the rainbow ponds is a different color. This extraordinary natural feature is said by some simply to be a matter of crystal deposits in the rocks beneath the pools, but this may not be true. The colors are so distinctly different that this phenomenon may well have been created by magic. Elvins would delight in conjuring up these gardens of color, but elvins are not to be found in the area. Most likely this is the magic of the elves. Needless to say, speculation abounds about the mysterious properties of the rainbow ponds. The turquoise pond, it is said, brings the gift of beauty. Bathing in the waters of the amber pool before attempting a new skill will ensure excellence, no matter whether this skill be a mental or a physical one, and the ruby pool bestows charismatic powers. No one may meet such a bather without experiencing immediate feelings of affection and friendship. Perhaps some or perhaps none of these stories are true. No one can be found who has ever set eyes on the rainbow ponds. This in itself may be due to their enchanted nature. The pools are an oasis in the midst of a jungle of chaos, and nirvana, which, once found, persuades any visitor to remain forever in awe of the beauty of the rainbow ponds. Stittle. The most recent stories of the rainbow ponds have caused great excitement among adventurers and explorers, for rumor has it that the ponds form part of the domain of the white-haired wood elves of Stittle. The elven village of Stittle, or Erendurdinath in the Elvish tongue, is a mystery to outsiders. Protected by elven magic, no one may discover the village without an invitation from the elves themselves, and the elves will admit only those who swear to preserve the secret of its whereabouts. But one thing is for sure. Erindurdinath is to be found deep within the forest of spiders, and is most probably close to the spectacular beauty of the rainbow ponds. Occasionally, one or two of the more adventurous young elves can be found outside the forest, curious about the world beyond their treetop kingdom. They will roam abroad, sometimes coming into contact with other races and, very occasionally, entering the cities of men. One such elf, known as Liha Falsehope, ventured as far as the town of Chalice, where he succumbed to the temptations that exist in such places. Stories spread of this mysterious white-haired creature whose manner was so delightful that the young women of Chalice would follow him wherever he went, tittering and offering their favors. The rowdy menfolk knew him as a regular in the town's drinking establishments. They watched in amazement as he entered, and won every drinking contest in every inn. At a street market he once acquired a well-made mandolin, and within a short time he was a master of the instrument, delighting every audience with his amusing songs. As his status rose to that of a celebrity within Chalice, folk naturally inquired about his past. At first he managed to remain true to his vow of silence, but this only caused rumors to circulate, not all of which were complimentary to Falsehope. Eventually, he was forced to reveal glimpses of his real past. His stories so enthralled his listeners, and each glimpse spread like wildfire as news around the town, that he was encouraged to tell more and more. Many of his stories he set to music, and even today his songs are known and sung by all the minstrels of Western Alancia. But finally, one night, after far too much ale and maybe a little smoking weed, Liha Falsehope revealed more than he should have done. In his drunken conversation with the young serving wench, he not only revealed that Erendurdinath existed and could be found deep in the forest of spiders, but his loose tongue told the story of the vapors whose secret had hitherto been known only to his fellow elves. After he had finished telling the story to the wench and the large crowd of eavesdroppers who had gathered around him, Falsehope realized his folly. Desperately he tried to cover up his words, but this merely prompted more and more questions from the crowd. The question most asked was, "And what was the name of this village of yours?" For men find elven names difficult to pronounce. Falsehope searched quickly for a name that would throw them off the track, and from somewhere deep in his memory the name Stittle appeared. Stittle is in fact a particular type of dye used by elves to color their clothes. The young elf was devastated when the effects of the ale wore off and he realized what he had done. The secrets of generations of wood elves had been revealed to all and sundry in a common inn. He left the town of Chalice and returned to his home in the forest of spiders, where he lived the rest of his days in disgrace. Until the day he died, he and his family were social outcasts in Erendurdinath. Even today, the family of Erulia Falsehope, Liha's great-grandson, must bear the shame, which cannot be forgotten, of revealing the existence of what became known as the vapors of Stittle. The vapors of Stittle. High in the treetops of the forest, the elves are protected from harm. This is partly due to their magical abilities and their keen eyesight, which is able to spot a likely intruder well in advance of their arrival. but partly this is a protection bestowed on them as a special favor by the gods. The elves of Stittlewode believe themselves to be a chosen race, a belief which has a ring of truth to it. After their creation, the gods were astonished at the natural grace and beauty of the white-haired elves they had brought to life. The early priests of Stittlewode were offered a bargain by their creators. The gods promised to watch over the elves and provide a good deal more protection than they afforded their other creations. In return, each generation of elves undertook to choose an elf maiden to be groomed as eventual queen to rule over Erin Durdina. Each future queen must be the most perfect child in the village, a maiden of stunning beauty, charming wit, and faultless grace. And on her 18th birthday, she had to undergo a celebratory ritual in which she would eventually commune with the gods. This communion represented the greatest honor which could be bestowed on each generation, and the longer this communion lasted, the more pleased the gods were. During the communion, great powers of wisdom and leadership were bestowed on the princess. Afterwards, she would be recognized as Queen of Erin Durdina. Within 4 seasons of her accession to the throne, the queen would always give birth. Such a birth was a religious affair, during which the queen was attended only by her priests. When the queen left her priests after her birth, she left alone. Only the priests and a handful of trusted villagers knew what actually happened at the birth, but all knew the result. No normal child was born to the queen. Instead, the gods gifted the queen with a benevolent spirit, a vapor, with a special power. Whichever god had been present at the elf princess's communion gave her vapor his special power, which was to be used wisely by her as queen. The vapor's birth ritual was unknown to all but the queen herself and her priests. But after birth, the vapor, safely stored in a glass flask, remained with the priests. The queen is able to call on her vapor only once during her reign, and even then only on one night of the year, known as the celestial equinox, when her god's constellation takes a certain position in relation to the other heavenly bodies. Thugraf and Daramus. This was the tale that Jaradan Mar heard from the wizard Hanicus. He pressed for more information and was told that the present elf queen, Ethiles, was reputed to have given birth to 3 vapors. Ethiles was an exceptionally beautiful maiden, so during her divine communion she had been visited by 3 of the elven gods. Euthulial, the god of languages, Ititia, god of reason, and Aliarian, the god of elf magic. It was the last name that seized Jaradan's attention, for as powerful as his magic was, that of the elves was equally powerful. If he were to acquire the knowledge of elven magic as well, he would be invincible. Jaradan's sharp mind was well aware of the possibilities, and he thought deeply on the wizard's words. But the ways of elves are secretive, and years passed before Jaradan Mar was able to make plans for finding the hidden village of Stittlewode. His mines prospered, and his power base grew. Valaskaru had returned with new recruits for his forces. In a seedy inn in Zengis, he had come across a burly half-troll named Thugraf. What started as a drunken brawl became a firm friendship, and Thugraf agreed to return with Valaskaru and join in service of Jaradan Mar. The necromancer took an instant liking to Thugraf, not least for his coarse sense of humor and his healthy streak and cruelty. He sent Thugraf into Knot Oak Wood to rebuild Hanicus's home as a hidden training ground known as the testing grounds for his troops. Hanicus had little say in the matter. Mar was by now tiring of the wizard's ineptitude. In fact, this was not all. Hanicus's control of security had been lax, and, unknown to Jaradan, the odd party of strong-arms had succeeded in breaking into his dungeons and looting Mar's riches. Though Mar had to wait 2 years for his arrival, Hanicus's replacement was far more suitable for the task. Valaskaru had returned from Port Blacksand with a sly grin on his face. He told of an encounter with a creature with exceptional qualities. Mar listened intently as he heard of Daramus, a half-elf and one of the undead. According to Rue, he was a ruthless creature who was totally without remorse and who took pride in torture and torment. As an officer of the army, as an officer in the army, he was known as one who would always welcome the order to kill the prisoners. When this order was given, he would first torture them for his private pleasure, then kill them. Mar liked the sound of this creature and liked him even more when the tall figure walked in to introduce himself. Doramus was immediately given the job of master of the Yellowstone mines, a position he excelled at. His first act was to end the system of paying the miners for their labors. From that day on, they were his prisoners, and guards with bullwhips made sure that the miners were putting in their best efforts. When many of the miners died, he had Thugruff scour the countryside with his army to bring in more slaves. So successful was he that Jaradan Mar soon put him in charge of his whole underground operation, after making sure that the old fool Hanicus would offer no resistance. Daga Weaseltongue, the innocent traitor. Thugruff's army grew and prospered, and the area of his testing grounds became a place of fear where forest creatures dared not venture. Perhaps it was inevitable, however, that the curiosity of the elves would eventually precipitate a meeting, and this dubious honor befell a young elf, Daga Weaseltongue, cousin of Arulia Falsope. A couple of Mar's legionnaires were strolling through the woods when they came across Weaseltongue, training his serpent-headed Ophidiotor. A friendship was struck and regular meetings followed. When Thugruff heard of this encounter, he sent word to Mar, who journeyed immediately to the testing grounds, disguised as a rhino man. He likewise befriended the elf and cultivated the friendship. When he felt he had the white-haired elf's trust, Mar skillfully manipulated Weaseltongue, under a controlled creature spell, into stealing the vapors from his own royal priests. The vapors were stored in his dungeons until he could research their secrets. Of course, nothing could be learned about the vapors, as nothing was known of them outside Stittle Woad. Thus, Jaradan Mar resolved to locate the elven village. The Galley Keep. Mar knew that the village would never be found simply by using his legionnaires to search the forest of spiders. Elf magic would ensure that it remained invisible to outsiders. However, reports were reaching him of another possibility. From the east, a great ship had been sighted. Its pure white sails billowed deeply to catch the winds. Its strong wooden hull would be almost impossible to hold, and its size was formidable. It would easily hold 1,000 troops. All who had set eyes on the ship believed it to be of divine origin, for it traveled not through the water, but through the air. Folk referred to it as the Galley Keep, but none knew from where it came. This seeded an idea in Jaradan Mar's mind. He must capture this ship. Not only would it be a symbolic throne worthy of a ruler of his stature, but it may even help him to find Stittle Woad. Perhaps he would never find the elven village from the ground, but it may well be unprotected from the air. Quickly he recalled Valaskaru, and the two of them set off for the testing grounds to discuss the plans to capture the Galley Keep with Thugruff. The success of their plan was a tribute to their military skills. The Galley Keep fell after a short but bloody ambush in the sky by Mar's trained Tuki troops, and he was delighted with his new vessel. Within days he had set up his headquarters in the ship. So this is now his home, and he has begun his search over the forest of spiders for the village of Stittle Woad. Those in the know are terrified at the thought of his success. Should he find Stittle Woad and the secret of the vapors, then his mastery of sorcery will be invincible. It is because of this fear that interested parties throughout Western Alancia have made plans to prevent him succeeding in his quest. Parties of brave adventurers from Chalice, Silverton, and Stonebridge have been sent on missions to capture the vapors and return them to the elves. But since no one has ever seen the vapors, none of the parties know what they are looking for. In Mirewater, Calabay is recruiting an army of birdmen to besiege the Galley Keep, but with little success, as the birdmen fear the ship. From Salamonis, elves are being persuaded to head north for the forest of spiders in order that word may reach Stittle Woad in time. But the forest elves are suspicious, even of their own kind, and this expedition may never succeed. Perhaps it is destiny that Jaradan Mar should rule these regions of Valencia. Only time will tell. This is the background to Creature of Havoc. Much what you have read will be of little help to you, and some of the information may even lead you astray. As you will find when you start your adventure, you have only the faintest awareness of your surroundings, and your actions will be ruled by instincts, the instincts of the creature you are. But gradually you will develop more control over your destiny. As the adventure progresses, you will be asking yourself the questions that all must ask in life. Who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? The answers you find to these questions will depend on which paths you choose as the Creature of Havoc. Right, here we are on my desk after that long introduction. That was really, really long, longer than I expected. Lots of interesting stuff there. And actually this reminds me, because I've just been making several episodes now of where I talk about my project of writing my own game book, and this is exactly the kind of stuff I've been going on about. World building, yes. So you're talking, because here they're talking about history, geography, different races, the relation between them. They talk about religion, they talk about rituals. Lots of good stuff. This is exactly the kind of stuff you need in a good game book, I think, to really sort of flesh it out and give it that extra interest. And well done, Steve Jackson. This is very, very clever stuff. So yeah, because you're actually given, I mean, that background makes everything so much more interesting, because you don't have to, you can have references to it in the game book itself, in the game itself, and you don't have to explain things there. It's all part of the, it becomes bigger than itself. Very good. So yeah, so I'm only going to read through that once, but I will paste it into future videos, and I will, when I make my next episode, I will say how long ahead you need to skip to avoid hearing it again, unless you want to hear it again, of course. So paragraph 1, let's start with paragraph 1 now. So it almost feels a long time ago I started this video now, because of reading now. Because the thing is, when you read a long continuous text, it's almost like your brain changes its state of consciousness. And when you stop doing that, it's a little bit, it feels a bit like waking up. So I don't know, maybe it's a kind of just like when you're dreaming and when you're sleeping, you have sort of it's like your brain waves are sort of going into a certain pattern, and which also narrows down your focus, so you can you focus only on one thing, and you're shutting out more of what's going on around you. Whereas when you are awake, of course, your senses are more alert to what's going on around you. So there might be something like that going on. But certainly, every time I read, and I read for a long time, one continuous text, it feels a bit like waking up from sleeping afterwards. Quite a fascinating feeling. Anyway, it's a bit different playing the game books now, because it's like I'm having a chat with someone, because I'm talking to the camera, or to whoever is watching. Okay, so enough chatter for now. So we are paragraph 1. The pain is unbearable. Make sure I'm focused, by the way. The pain is unbearable. Summoning up all your energy, you open your eyes, first one, then the other. They narrow to slits as they adjust themselves to the strain of trying to see once more, then relax as they make out familiar shapes in the dim light. A dirt floor, a rocky walls. Then the pain takes over. Your head rocks, your eyes submit and close tightly in an agonized grimace. Instinctively, you raise your hands to cup your face, and the low moan mingles with a rasping sound as your rough fingers rub the scaly skin above your eyes. After some time, the pain begins to ease. You open your eyes once more and peer out from between your gnarled fingers. You seem to be at the dead end of a passageway. Your surroundings are barely visible, but a dull glow is coming from the northern extent of the passageway, which stretches before you. A sound is also coming from this direction, of irregular breathing. Something alive is up there. You heave your great bulky body to its feet. Along your back, the spines bristle. Swinging your heavy head slowly from side to side, your progress is decided. Northwards is the only option open to you. Muscles strain and succeed in raising a lumbering foot, which thuds loudly down on the ground in front of you. You repeat the action, first with one foot, then the other. After 4 steps, the motion has become automatic. You are moving more quickly and more quietly up the passage. When you reach the end, your eyes are drawn to a huddled shape lying on the ground in front of you, which I presume is this man here. He looks like he's huddling. The small figure lies on its side, facing away from you. It is shrouded in a dirty brown cape tied around its neck, and it lies in a puddle of thick red liquid. Its body rises and falls irregularly with each breath. Some unidentified feeling swells within you. Is it anger, hate, fear, curiosity, hunger, or even sympathy? You bend down towards the little creature, uttering a meaningless grunt as you do so. The sound rouses the figure, which rolls slowly over to face you. The creature's dirty face is light-skinned, though barely visible under the thick hair which shades its closed eyes, and almost totally obscures its mouth. From its chin, the hair rolls abundantly down its chest in a grey, unruly mass. Underneath the body, and now exposed by the creature's movement, is a sharp, shiny shaft, and this catches your attention. As you stand there staring, the creature's eyes flick open. They focus on your bulky shape, and a look of terror streaks across the creature's face. In spite of its pain, it fumbles for and grasps the shiny shaft, holding its pointed end out towards you and baring its teeth. The wounded dwarf you have found is evidently in need of help. Will you show him you mean no harm? Try to talk to him. Bring your foot down heavily on his neck. Okay, so so basically this is almost like you're waking up as a new creature and you have no idea what's going on, which is very, very clever writing, I think, already, I think, in this book. Okay, so, and of course he's got a sword or a knife or something, shiny pointy stick. So talking to him sounds like a non-starter because I don't know how to talk. I can make sounds probably. Bringing my foot down on his neck, yeah, that would work. Show him you mean no harm. I suppose that is possible, but he might still just attack me though. So we got 93. Oops, I should be doing a pen for this. 93. No harm. 364. Talk. And 185 foot. Let's put here, this is FF24, page number 1. Okay, I'm going to show him I mean no harm, see if that gets me anywhere. So 93 is my next paragraph. You reach down with your hand to help him to his feet, but as you move, the little creature strikes and his sword cuts into your forearm. Luckily, the tough scales prevent it from doing any real harm, but you must still lose 2 stamina points. Yeah. -2 stamina. You don't show someone that you don't mean any harm by trying to help them up. You show someone you don't mean any harm by stepping back and showing your palms or something like that. Everyone knows this, even monsters, surely. Because if you try to help him up, it looks like you're attacking. So yeah, that's a bad idea. Anyway, so stamina down to 20. Considering your size in comparison to his action was understandable. Yes, it was. Now, instead of reaching for his arm, your hand opens and grips the dwarf's neck. That doesn't sound very friendly, does it? You struggle to control your actions. Oh, I see, your instinct has taken over now. But to no avail. Your sharp talons dig into the unfortunate creature's flesh. His eyes bulge and he tries to scream. Frantically, he hits you again with his sword, but the blow lacks power. Deduct 1 more stamina point. So a total of 3 stamina points gone in this bit here. Then his body goes limp. Your tremendous strength put the poor creature out of its misery, but the incident has left you feeling very strange. Although you wish to help the creature, the dwarf, you have helped him only to an early grave. Will you put these thoughts out of your mind and leave the area? Will you try to hide the body, or will you examine the body? Okay, interesting and unusual options, I guess. So I'm going to put them to the side here. 1, 2, and 3. So we have 2, 4, 8. Leave. 2, 1, 8. Hide the body. Or 3, 9, 9. Examine. I'm going to examine the body. Have a little look. See if I can learn something. 399. Oh yeah, this book has more than 400 paragraphs, by the way. It's 460. Let's see, there we are. Your hands relax and the sharp claws retract into your fingers. You clumsily fumble through the dwarf's dirty vestments. Your fingers will not fit into the pockets, but you do succeed in snapping the thongs of a large leather pouch which the creature has around its waist. As the ties break, the pouch spills its contents on the ground in front of you. It contained several circular pieces of shiny metal and a piece of hide, which unfolds as it drops out of the pouch. It is light in color and has markings all over one side. You pick it up awkwardly and look at it, but it makes no sense at all. You become quite fascinated by this piece of leather. You turn it round, rub it with your hands, and throw it in the air. You place it on your arm and on your head. You decide to take the leather with you. So that is a piece of leather, which is what you later might find out is a map, I guess. So I'm going to put a leather map, presumably. Unknown to you, the message on the hide may be useful later in your adventure. Turn to 337 to examine the message. If you are carrying this piece of hide, you may return to 337 at any time to re-examine it, but you will need to remember the reference you have come from in order to return and continue. Okay, so 337. But I don't know. Should I look at that? I shouldn't look at the message right away, should I? Because I don't actually wouldn't be able to comprehend it right away. And when do I look? I'll leave it a little bit now. So just because it doesn't feel right for me to actually look at it now that it's just a piece of leather with some markings on it. As you may have realized by now, your own wishes have little effect on your reactions as a creature. You have only glimpses of what you are like and what you are capable of, although this will change as the adventure progresses. At this stage, you are at the mercy of your own whims and instincts. You are standing at a junction where you may go either east or west. Roll 1 dice. I'm actually rolling dice, it seems. So let's see, +1 map. Think, and 337. Right. So I'm going to give it a bit of space now because I don't know how much else can happen down here. So S is 308 and 148, and we're rolling a die, so it's 2. 308, so that is 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2, 6. So we are going to 308 because that's what I feel like, and that's west. So I didn't have a choice. That's quite an interesting way to do it as well. Instead of actually choosing east or west, you just go where you feel like, because that's what your instinct tells you is the right way. You travel west along a twisting passageway. Several times you bump clumsily into the walls and grunt in annoyance, but your tough scales protect you from damage. The temperature drops noticeably, and each breath sends steamy snorts from your nostrils. After narrowing slightly, the passage widens as it leads towards a chamber. A sound from ahead and the flickering light warn you to take care, but rather than making you stop to listen, the prospect of an encounter seems to excite you. You bare your teeth and your claws and stride forward into the chamber. Ooh, okay. Turn to 205. Okay, so 205. Roaring like an enraged demon. It seems like I've got a taste for killing things now, don't I? Roaring like an enraged demon, you rush into the open chamber, ready to take on whatever is inside. Terrified shrieks come from the small party of adventurers huddling round a makeshift campfire in the center of the area. 3 figures are warming themselves by the fire. One wears shiny clothes that clink as he moves, so armor. Another is dressed in red and also grows long dark hair from his chin. Mage, I suppose. The third is a tiny creature with polished hide on his chest. He has no hair on his chin, but has plenty on his feet, which he has been holding up to warm at the fire. So that's a hobbit. When he has been holding... Yeah, your eyes fix on the smallest of the 3. Your breathing gets heavier and a feeling of pure hatred grips you. Without hesitating, you stomp across and grab the miserable hobbit with your claws. The other 2 are caught off balance and are slow to react. The hobbit has no weapon and should be an easy victim. So basically, this is presumably the party on the way to I don't know. Might this be the people from the Hobbit? Is it Gandalf and Bilbo? Right. So 5, 6. So we have 2 options here. If we win in 3 straight attack rounds, so 160, 60, 3 rounds, or 86, 3 plus. Okay. That's actually not a good wording, because if you defeat the creature in 3 straight attack rounds, because you can actually defeat it in 2 rounds, so they don't have to be straight. So 3 straight attack rounds is not a binary option with longer than 3 rounds, actually. Just pointing it out. So it's not the right word, because you can use luck in battle already, can't you? Presumably, because it's not like you choose to be lucky. I mean, the character doesn't choose to be lucky. You choose whether you are going to be lucky. Let's see. Let's find out. In battles, you always have the option of using your luck. There you go. So, yes, you could defeat him in 2 rounds, or 2 out of 3. Right, so I just to do this properly now. So I'm 11, 19. He is was it 5, 6? Yeah, 5, 6. So I have a 6 skill point advantage, and I kill him instantly on doubles. So I roll 5. He rolls 6. So he's down to 4. I roll 8. He rolls 11. He rolls. I roll. I'm supposed to roll for him first. I'm doing it the wrong way around now. Okay. I'm not used to this to being a creature, so therefore I started rolling in the wrong order. Anyway, he's dead in 3 straight attack rounds, and I go to 160. As the creature dies, you sink your teeth into its arm to taste its juicy flesh. But then you remember the other 2 adventurers. I don't know, they're adventurers. Is that even a concept? Sometimes this book now has already used it's describing a sword as a shiny stick and armor as sort of some clinky, shiny things. But then suddenly it uses things like dwarf and hobbit and adventurer, which are far more complicated concepts than gold coins, swords, and armor when you think about it. The red-robed figure is facing you, pointing the little finger of each hand at you and mumbling. A shiny human, I don't know, is a human, has grabbed a sword. So I'm learning it's a sword now. Similar, you remember, to the dwarfs, but larger, and is shouting to the other. Yes, so basically that means it sounds like gibberish to me, and I have no idea what it's saying. You cannot fight both at once. Which will you direct your attention to? Test your luck. Okay, so... Right. So testing my luck, I roll 6. So I am lucky. My luck goes down by 1 point. And I am, let's see, here. Oh. Looks like my camera stopped there, but I think I caught it as it was happening. So 292 lucky and 48 unlucky. I suppose lucky now probably is that I get to fight the mage first. So let's see. Because he's going to be the most dangerous now. Or not. Your reaction is immediate. The red-robed human is deep in thought and looks an easy target. Oh yes, there we are. You step forward and swipe viciously at him with your claws. He screams and falls to the ground, clutching at his face. You look down at the undefended wretch and prepare to deliver the death blow. But at that moment you feel a terrible sting in the back, which causes you to bellow and swing round. The remaining adventurer has lunged at you with his sword and succeeded in piercing the scales and flesh on your back. You must lose 2 stamina points for the wound. Must I? And then you can face the knight in plate armor. Yeah, see, I'm learning really quickly, aren't I? Armored knight. So we have, let's see, 8, 9. I suppose that is the best option because if I'd gone for the knight first, the wizard would have cast a spell on me, of course, which would have been much worse. So, and if I defeat the knight, go to 446. Right, so we have 11, 19, and the knight is 8, 9, which means I only have a 3 skill point advantage this time. He rolls. I'm going to roll for my opponent first now, which is the correct order and the one that I usually do. He rolls to 4. Yeah, 7. Six, 9. It's down to 5. He rolls 9. I roll 6. That is a draw. He rolls a 5. I roll a 9. He rolls a 10. I roll a 6. That means he hits me. Oh, I'm down to 15, by the way. He rolls a 7. I roll a 5. He's got 1 left. He rolls 5 and I roll 6. And so he is vanquished. And I go to 446. You deliver the death blow and the knight drops to the ground. With the danger now over, your thoughts turn to food. The smell of the still warm hobbit reaches your nostrils and your mouth begins to water. You snatch the creature in one hand and eagerly sink your teeth into its sweet flesh. But this will merely provide a snack for you. Inside his armor, the knight is an impossible meal, but the red-robed wizard groaning on the floor may be a new taste for you to savor. You silence his miserable whimpers with a single deadly slash from your claws. For the tasty meal, you may restore your stamina to its initial level. Okay, so stat equals init. And we are back to 22. Lovely. After you have eaten, you rummage through the adventurer's belongings. Their packs have little to interest you. The hobbit carried a miniature sword, and you find a rolled-up piece of thin parchment in the wizard's robe. All three humans carried odd-shaped lumps of a doughy substance. Hang on, 3 humans? There were only 2 humans and 1 hobbit. Perhaps food, although it smells of nothing to you. They all also have small hide pouches containing round, flat objects of shiny metal. You cannot think what these may be for, so you toss them aside. You must now continue your journey. Passages lead off from the chamber to the north, east, and west. You decide to take the passageway to the west. You leave the chamber, your way ahead lit by the flickering fire. Eventually, the fire's light becomes too distant to help, and you are groping your way in pitch blackness. Suddenly, a high-pitched twittering sound comes from above you, bats, followed by others. You have disturbed a group of flying creatures, which are now squeaking an alarm as they dart about around you. You swipe at them blindly and catch 1 or 2 of them as they dive at you and scratch you with sharp claws, but your scales protect you from any serious harm, and you are soon further along the passage, where these creatures evidently do not venture. The passage turns north. You follow it around the bend to the right and stop in front of a wooden door. Don't know what a wooden door is. Do I know what wood is? Don't know what a door is. Well, apparently so. There is no other way forward. Would you heave at the door with your shoulder, or is there something else you wish to do? Roll 1 die. Again, I'm sort of given a choice, but then I'm not given a choice, which is kind of frustrating. And I'm sure that is the intent as well. So, I can't control myself. Because then you will sort of gradually get that. First, you get that sense of not being in control, and then gradually you get the sense of being in control, I presume. So 277 and 101. And this is presumably a really unique game book in this way. So I'll roll a 5, which is going to 101. So 3 to 6, 1 to 2. Okay. So I go to paragraph 101. Another long paragraph. The door cracks under the force of your blow. A hole appears, and you rip the timbers away until it is large enough for you to pass through. Torches are mounted on the wall of the room inside, and there are 2 doors, one to the east and one to the west. There is no furniture to speak of, but some remains, perhaps of a table and chair, litter the floor among thin covering of dirty straw. The wood has been broken in what appears to have been a furious battle, the result of which lies before you. In the center of the room is a familiar sight. Casting your mind back to the battle you have just won, you recognize the figure of an armored knight lying face down in the straw. His face is hidden under an elegant helmet decorated with wings coming from above each ear. A dark-bladed sword has entered his body through a gap in his armor, between his arm and shoulder. Lying next to the knight are 3 other figures. One is similar in stature, but wears a tough leather tunic and helmet. A bloody stain around his belly indicates how this adventurer came to grief. The other 2 figures are not so familiar. They are shorter than the others and are dressed in armor of scaly brown hide. They have gnarled, pug-nosed faces with vicious teeth set in their lower jaws. All 4 bodies are long dead. You step forward to get a better look. Suddenly you hear a chomping sound coming from somewhere in the room. In fact, several places, but you cannot see anything which might make such a noise. Your eyes pass over the adventurer in leather armor, and you suddenly freeze. While you are watching, a chunk of flesh disappears from his thigh. You watch incredulously for a few moments more. Not only does more flesh disappear from the adventurer's leg, but you also notice the body of one of the pug-nosed creatures twitch as its forearm suddenly loses a fleshy lump. The scene is worrying, and you must decide what to do next. Roll 1 die. If you roll 1, 2, or 3, decide to investigate the bodies. If you roll 4, 5, or 6, you head quickly for the door to the east. So again, rolling the dice. Right, so another interesting aspect of the dice rolling now, instead of actually making choices, is that it will be different next time, with quite a high likelihood in the beginning. So let's see. So 1, 2, was at 101, yeah, and then we have 2 options. 2, 3, 4. If I roll 1, 2, 3, that's quite nice. And 1, 6, 8 if I roll 4, 5, or 6. So we have another dice roll, and I roll 1, 6, 8. You make your way cautiously towards the door, horrified by the sight of the bodies slowly disappearing. As you step across one of the pug-nosed creatures, your foot catches something in the air. A screeching noise from somewhere is followed by a yelp of pain from you, as sharp teeth clamp onto your foot. Lose 2 stamina points. 20. So that's minus 2 stamina. The shock causes you to tumble over and this frees your foot. But as you lift yourself up, something is happening in the room. 3 shapes are materializing in front of you. Turn to 447. 447. Your eyes widen as 3 scrawny creatures. Oh, that's the picture there. Quite small as well, aren't they? Okay. Your eyes widen as... Actually, I'm not sure if I showed you that. Let's just do a proper picture look now. So I'm going to just zoom in there and focus, rather. Quite an interesting picture. There we are. And refocus. And there we go. They are thin and angular and move in quick, jerky motions. Although their bodies are covered in a scraggy dark fur, their bony faces are bold with tiny eyes. In the center of each face is an oversized, protruding mouth, rimmed with sharp teeth. These vicious little flesh feeders live on carrion. While feeding, they make themselves invisible to avoid being caught unawares. But in between meals, they are both visible and quick-tempered. They now face you, furious that their meals have been interrupted, and you must battle with the creatures. They attack together. So, that means that we got combat not just against 2, but against 3 opponents all at once. So we got 6, 6, 6, 7, and 6, 6. So they all got the same skill, which means that they only... And of course, the strategy for the tactics of fighting a multi-combat is you want to take out first as quickly as possible, want to reduce the risk of getting injured. So sometimes that means you want to take out the one with the lowest stamina first. So yeah. Or sometimes, depending, it could be the one with the highest skill. So it's a balancing thing. But in this case, they all have the same skill, which means I want to take out the ones with 6 stamina first, because that's quicker than the one with the 7 stamina. So I'm going to start with one of the 6s. And I've got a 5 skill point advantage. So first flesh eat feeder rolls 10. I roll doubles, which means I kill it instantly. Right, bye-bye. And I still have to roll for the other 2, and of course see if I get injured by them. So I've got, so they roll a 7, I roll 11, they roll 8, and I roll 10. So I'm fine. I managed to protect myself from those. Okay, second one, I'm going to attack the other 6 now. So he rolls 4, I roll a 9. It's down to 4. Then it's for the other one, 7 and 7. So I'm protecting myself. Next round, he rolls 7, I roll 4. Still hitting him. The second one, rolls a 10, I roll a 7. So I'm protecting myself successfully. And then he rolls 7, I roll 5. So second one is dead. And the last one rolls 8, I roll 7. I'm protecting myself. Then it's the last one, just it and me left. He rolls a 6, I roll a 4. He rolls 6, I roll... Okay, I roll 4, 2 doubles, so he is dead. Right. So I defeat them and I go to 89. Just have a little note on my map here. So that's 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, 6. And I'm just going to keep moving up on my map now because I think there might be a lot of complexity going on down here that I may encounter eventually. 89. So far, there haven't actually been that many actual choices. There was a choice right in the beginning, which I'm wondering if that actually makes a big difference to where you end up, because then it was dice, then it was luck, then it was rolling, and it was rolling. So actually, that's the only actual choice I've made so far has been right there in the beginning, actually. Interestingly. So first I get two choices right in the beginning. So first, whether to use my foot on the creature to talk or to show that I don't intend any harm, and then as a second one where you asked if you want to leave, examine, or hide the body. So I'm wondering if those two choices right at the beginning, if that's sort of what shapes your trajectory onwards. It'll be very interesting to see when I play it the second time. I'm really looking forward to that now. Okay, so you rest for a few moments to catch your breath, and then you survey the room. Your curiosity overcomes you, and you begin to investigate the 7 bodies in the room. The pug-faced orcs are dirty and smelly. You try a mouthful of flesh, but spit it out in disgust. Around their waist, they carry small bags, which, when ripped open, send a shower of small bones flying across the room. The 2 adventurers are not much more interesting. Similar pouches contain those round pieces of shiny metal which you came across before. They scatter on the floor and you ignore them. I would have thought you were attracted to nice shiny things, wouldn't you? I mean, gold coins. I mean, they're really attractive when you think about it. It's like little pieces of sunshine. The pack on the back of the adventurer in the winged helmet is decorated and attracts your attention. One of the straps... Have I got any tea left? No, I finished my tea. Just got a bit thirsty now from all this talking. Right. One of the straps breaks as you rip it off his back and grope clumsily inside. You feel something solid. As you fumble angrily with the rucksack, a hard wooden casket drops to the ground and falls open. Inside is a clear, smooth flask which contains swirling purple gas. And I know, because I read the background, that this might be one of the vapors. Your curiosity is captured and your huge clawed hand tries to grasp the delicate flask, but this turns out to be hopeless. Eventually you pick up the casket and drop it on the ground. As luck would have it, the flask jumps in its cradle and lands in such a way that the stopper flips out of the flask. The purple gas within swirls tempestuously and its vapors seep slowly from the neck of the flask. Turn to 382. Is this... I wonder if this is... So this might be the vapor of... Did it mention the colors? I don't think it did. So it was the vapor of language and magic and one more. I'm presuming I'm not getting magic now. Language might be one of the first ones. I was going to have a little look again now. So it was... yeah, so it's language, reason, and magic. So if I get reason, that probably means I will be able to make my own choices. And if I get language, I'll be able to understand what people say. But what order do I get them in? Let's find out. Okay. 382. So now I'm going to get either language or reason. I'm betting on reason first. let's see. The gas drifts from the flask, but rather than spreading out, it pulls itself together into a purple cloud and billows up before you. You watch open-mouthed as a shape begins to form in the cloud and eventually turns into a face which stares deep into your eyes. The face is human-like but thin and with jagged features. The pupils of its eyes are not round but are instead serpent-like. Its thin-lipped mouth opens and speaks. And Dibmar, Flbst, Defmobnjorst, Fvlukrst, Tvrst, Fot Prickersview. Yatigwini, Wit Hitchi, Put Fmf. Vut and Fnf, Tilfut Smith, Pivot, Yisipid News, Gibst Pop, Noib, Uth, Pivot, Pref, Frippemont, Pinot, Wubrefei nichts, and Truplop, Fjov, Upfnod, Tini. Benat am mir wie ihr würden your flip or something like that. That's roughly what it said there. Anyway, I just stopped reading at the end there because it's quite hard work. Your anger mounts as you swipe at the cloud, but your hand passes right through the gas without even disturbing it. The mysterious face blinks slowly and the color of the cloud flashes momentarily from purple to white and back to purple again. Then the face disappears and the cloud is sucked down back into its flask. Once safely inside the flask, the stopper replaces itself in the neck and the bottle settles into its cradle in the wooden casket. An instant later, the casket and its contents have faded to nothing. You decide you have had enough of this room, but you may add 2 luck points for your find. And I have used 1 luck point because I had a luck roll, of course, early on. Will you leave through the door to the west or the door to the east? And notice I get a choice, which means I was right. This was the vapor of reason. I now have acquired free will, which is, of course, kind of illusion in itself, but at least I have acquired the illusion of free will, which is quite a complex thing when you think about it. So I'm going to go either west 51 or east 33. Okay, so I presume now, okay, so I'm going to have to make some predictions now. I presume that all the paths from the beginning will eventually lead to this point here. Where you get your vapor of reason, and then you can start making your own choices. I'm guessing this is a choke point on my map. So yeah, we'll see that later. Oh, +2 luck. I need to put on +2 luck as well. So +2 luck. Not that you actually get to choose whether to use luck or not before. So I'm going to go west 51. You leave the room along a passageway which runs west, your thoughts still dwelling on the mysterious small creature. After a short time, you find that the passage is bending this way and that through the rocky earth, but your progress is aided by the strange blue glowstones which are set into the roof of the passage. As you progress, glowstones ahead of you light up and bathe the area in an eerie blue light. When you look behind, you can see that they magically turn themselves off. Clever. Suddenly, a distant echo reaches your ears and you stop dead in your tracks. Again you hear the sound and it is coming closer. Footsteps and muffled voices are heading towards you. You are fortunate in having the advantage that your own footsteps are virtually silent, so you continue ahead, ready for a fight with anything that may come along. You approach the bend. A shrill scream pierces the air, and for an instant you are not sure whether it came from your own throat or that of the terrified adventurer with whom you suddenly found yourself nose to nose when you turned the bend. But you recover quickly and slash furiously at the hapless human who is still trying to compose himself after his fright. You catch him across the skimpy leather armor he wears on his chest and send him crashing into the rocky wall, where he loses his grip on the sword he is carrying. His 2 companions are close behind, so you must finish off the strong arm without delay. Right, so battle again, 7, 8, and a winning leads us to 320. I have 1120. He has 7, 8. I've got a 4 skill point advantage. He rolls a 3, which means I hit, but I have to roll for myself now because I might roll doubles. So I'm always going to have to roll for myself in this book. When in other books, if there's no way that my opponent can hit me, I don't have to roll all the time. So he rolls a 6, I roll a 7. He rolls a 5, I roll a 3. That is still a hit, the most palpable hit. He rolls a 6 and I roll an 8, and he is gone. And I go to 320. As their leader falls, the other 2 adventurers rush to attack. One is a female warrior, and the other is a thief. Both are carrying... How do you know it's a thief? Well, I suppose you start to know things now, don't you? Both are carrying shields, and both... How do you know someone is a thief just by looking at them? I mean, come on, that's a bit prejudiced, isn't it? Both are carrying shields, and both attack you at the same time. Okay, so we have 7, 7, and 8, 6. If you defeat both, turn to 281. So I'm going to put that up there on my map. Right, so we have 7, 7, and 8, 6. So, in this case, it's of course easier to hit the 7, 7 guy than the 8, 6. But I'm wondering if even so I should go for the 8-6 first, because he is also more likely to inflict injury on me, and it will be possible to kill in 3 blows. So I'm going to go... It's quite close there. But I'm gonna 3 skill point advantage. I'm going to go with the 8-6. So he rolls 7, I roll 7, so he's down to 4. His chum rolls an 8, I roll a 3 to defend myself, which is not enough to defend myself. He hits me. Second round, 8 and 8, so he's down to 2. His friend rolls an 8, I roll a 9 to defend myself, which is successful. 10 versus 5, which means he hits me. His friend rolls a 9. I roll a 3 to defend myself. I'm down to 14. I need to eat soon. 8 versus 8. So first guy is dead. Second guy rolls a 2. I roll 10, and he is dead, actually. So that was quite good. Yes, doubles. But my stamina is down to 14. I need to eat some fresh meat. Yes. 281 is where I go. You poke around the bodies of the 3 dead ruffians. Ruffians? I thought they were adventurers. Well, okay. Something shining on the wrist of the 3rd adventurer catches your attention. Clumsily, you rip at the clothing of all 3, eventually exposing 3 objects of interest. The leading adventurer wore around his neck a pendant made of a dull, dark metal on a leather thong. The 3rd adventurer wore 2 wrist bracelets of a shining yellow metal. The other carried a pouch containing 12 small flat discs of a shiny metal. Which of these is of the most interest to you? So, I'm going to put my 3 options up here, like so. 306, 259, or 412. So we got pouch, we got bracelet, or pendant. Right, I think that I don't know, the pendant sounds more exciting to me, to be honest. Right, so I'm going to go with the dull pendant, 306. You are fascinated by the ugly pendant. You carefully hook the leather thong with a claw and pull it free of the adventurer's head. You turn it over in your hand and can see that it is circular, with a dull blue stone set at its center. You stare at the pendant for some time, wondering what to do with it. Then you remember how the adventurer wore it. You are just able to squeeze it over your head, and you carry the pendant proudly around your neck. The pendant has a secret, which will be revealed in due course. If you reach a reference which begins, "You cannot see a thing, ... deduct 20 from the reference number you are on at the time and turn to this new reference." Ooh, fascinating, fascinating. I really, really like that sort of thing, the clues with a paragraph reference. So, pendant, and then it's "You cannot see a thing, ... and then it is minus 20. My luck goes up 1, which doesn't need really, so it's +1 luck, and then it is a clue. Right. Now turn to 115. Okay, so 115. Before you finally leave the adventurers, you may decide to feed on them. If you do, you gain 4 stamina points. So I'm going to do that. I'll get up to 18. So +4 stamina. Then you continue. All is silent as you walk carefully along the passage. Eventually, your ears pick up the sound of running water, and the air becomes moist and cool. The sensation would be quite refreshing if it were not for an unpleasant smell, which gets stronger as the sound of the water becomes louder. Soon you find yourself on a ledge in the face of a rocky cliff. Looking out, you can see you are high over a vast cavern through which a river flows. Leading down from your ledge into the center of the cavern is a flight of rough-cut stairs. This precarious staircase spans the river and is the only way onwards. But the thought of descending the stairs is not one which fills you with enthusiasm. The narrow steps have been made for human-sized feet, and your large pads will make your descent awkward. The smell, which was unpleasant before, is now horrendous and seems to be coming from the river itself. Its waters are murky brown, and the smell of excrement and decay is overpowering. Nevertheless, your only way on is downwards, so down you must go. Test your luck. So, okay, test luck. I think I'm going to go to page 2 now. Okay, so we got 2 and at 115, 115, and then it is testing of luck. 166 lucky and 71 lucky. I roll 7, so I am lucky, and I go down to 8 luck, and I go to 166. The descent is dangerous, and several times you lose your footing and stumble on the slippery steps, but your luck holds out, and you finally arrive at the foot of the staircase. The stench of the river is especially foul to your sensitive nostrils, and your eyes search desperately for a way out of the cavern. You discover 2 openings in the rock face ahead of you. One leads to the west and the other to the north. Will you continue north or turn west? So we have north or west. 3, 5, 8. Which is north, or 77, which is west. I'm going to go west again. 77. You enter the passage. It twists and turns through the rock in a haphazard way until it finally opens out into a small cavern. You pause to get your bearings and search for the best way through. Leading off to the north is a wide passage which seems to be going somewhere. But to get to it, you will have to cross the cavern, and crossing the cavern is not an inviting prospect. For in the cavern wall to your right are 2 caves, and in a neat pile outside the first cave is a mound of bones, some broken, some just chewed. But judging from the size of some of the bones, whatever was eating them was no mere half-orc. Will you head for the caves to attack whatever is inside, or will you simply cross the cavern and see what happens? I'm curious now. I'm a big, strong, dangerous monster. Why should I be scared of some other big, strong, dangerous monster? Why would I even consider the fact that something is big and as I mean, at any point during this process, at no point have I really felt fear, have I? Not really. I'm going to, let's see, cross or attack. So I'm going to go and check out and see if I can find this big beast, so I can show to him who's the bigger, badder beast. Who's afraid of the big bad beast? Yes. You creep up to the first cave and peer inside. It is dark and you can see little, but the thing that strikes you immediately is the smell of rotten flesh. Whatever lives in here certainly has a large appetite for meat. You poke your head further into the cave and you can see a large furry ball heaving up and down in one corner. You step forward to catch the sleeping creature unawares, but your foot kicks a loose stone and sends it scuttling across the cave towards it. The creature shudders, awakens, and gets up. By now you have already decided to attack, and you are virtually on top of the creature as its face turns towards you. There is a look of pure fury in its ghostly white eyes as the devourer opens its mouth to defend itself. Not itself. It's not more than one creature, is it? 2 layers of jagged blood-stained teeth part and sink into the scales of your arm. You howl and spring back out of its clutches, lose 2 stamina points for the bite. The creature is as tall as you, so not that big and bad, is it? Well, so minus 2 stamina. Let's see, so down to 16. You must resolve your fight with the creature. So, and if I win, I go to 41. So let's just do 41. Right, so this is going to be a little bit more challenging, but I may still roll doubles. So, I mean, that's always quite a good chance of that happening. So I am at 11-16. And the Devourer has 10-8. So I only got 1 skill point advantage, which isn't very good. Let's see what happens. He rolls 12. Oh, not an auspicious start. I rolled 10, which means he hits me, and I'm down to 14. He rolls 3, that's better. I roll 7. He rolls 5, good. I roll 4, that's a draw. He rolls 5 again. I roll 8. He rolls 7. I roll 8. He rolls 5. I roll 7. And he is dead. He didn't have that much stamina, but I'm not sure if going this way, if that actually meant I got some advantage that gave him less stamina. I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever the case is, I've got 14 stamina left, and he is dead, and I go to 41. You leave the cabin and head along the passage which leads to the north. Again, the route twists and turns, but you progress without incident. Eventually, you reach the foot of a flight of stairs carved out of the rock and leading up into darkness. You climb the stairs and reach a junction where you may head either north or east, and in this case, it seems the stairs were not as difficult as before. But the thing about stairs is, certainly going up, is you can crawl, of course, quite easily up stairs, even if they're not the right size for you. So, north or east? So I can't go west this time. I'm going to north or east. 136 north or 156 east. I'm going to go north, 136. The passage heads north for no more than a few paces before meandering off in northeasterly direction. Undisturbed layers of dust and dirt on the floor indicate that this corridor is little used. Eventually, the passage straightens and heads east. You soon come to a junction where you may either continue east or turn to the north again. So I'm going to put a bit of space between these ones now, just in case. like so. So we have 373 east or 404 north. I'm going to continue north, actually. Yes, let's go north. The passage is much wider here, and footprints in the dirt indicate that it is more frequently used. But all the footprints seem to be heading the other way. A little further ahead, you come to the top of a narrow staircase heading downwards. You consider this for some time, but eventually decide against going down the steps. You turn round and retrace your steps, this time turning east at the junction. Okay, so that might be the sort of entrance to the cave system from the outside, maybe. 373. And actually, the cave I'm in, that's presumably the Yellowstone mines, maybe, is it? Because this is where the vapor was, and of course, Jared and Mar is, yeah, so that would be. The rocky corridor continues for some time and then turns sharply southwards. Ahead of you, at the end of the passage, is a sturdy wooden door. To your left is another door. Would you try the door straight ahead or the door to your left? So we have two options. Two doors, 241 or 15. So that is left or ahead. I'm going to try the door on my left, 241. As soon as you enter the room, two blood orcs, warty creatures with powerful jaws and piercing front teeth, get up from a table and grab their swords. If they have teeth like that, isn't it more natural for them to actually fight with their teeth? What do you think about it? A voice is coming from behind them, and you look up to see an elderly human with dirty robes and a long white beard groping the air in front of him and calling out. Wapois eight, whibtais hibpimting, whabtahibstad yustur pif devs, pilfigdor ibl ka fifev vrs. You must resolve your fight with the blood orcs, who are now upon you. They both attack together. So, 241, yeah, so 7, 7, 8, 7. And if you win, go to 7. Right, so we have a stamina of 14, and we are fighting a 7, 7, and an 8, 7 at the same time. And then the question is, should I fight the one with the highest skill first? And I think I will. So I'm going to go attack the one 8, 7. I've got a 3 skill point advantage, and he rolls first. So he rolls a 6, I roll a 6, which means I hit him. The second one rolls a 5, and I roll a 7, so I defend myself successfully. Second round, he rolls 10, I roll 12, so he is dead because I rolled doubles. Second one rolls 6, I roll 7, I defend myself. Next round, fighting the 7, 7. 4 skill point advantage. He rolls 8. I roll 8. He is down to 5. He rolls 2. Why do he? Let's see. Oh, I got the double as well. And he is dead. And there we are. And I go to 7. And that double rule actually makes it combat more fun, I would say. So yeah, maybe if you have lots of battles in the book, maybe that's the way to go. To have some kind of critical strike feature that makes it a little bit more fun. Okay. With the lifeless blood orcs lying at your feet, your attention now turns to the human in the dirty robes. He is staggering about in fear for his life, his eyes tilted slightly towards the ceiling. Pulps. Jef Jopf Ubrfe Fethne Lepfe Mpfeb Ipfu Pref Estreb Ngfiliev Slifnit. For Pobr Fiep de Po Ipfuvdment Verstiptement Amf Me Egptoyon Tebfrut. Je fej prøvpluppen sitt pod pop tubvabjot jemf njeb poitik which kli. But herfjus jeb fepe befov jethjeb. Jep epfjut spinaften fruste benathfjev mventwur. Not poor furf nestjev pop furvdvrst. Spofjeb jabs i YouTube twop. Jestem wciąmią w sfirach nie. Sjup och biert je. Gif jem fleg plud ob niaf if nimfum. Brolf fem feb. What do you wish to do with this creature? Now this is so much, it says so much, and maybe I could actually try to decipher some of it, but yeah, I don't think you really intended to, are you? What do you wish to do with this creature? Will you ignore him and feast on the meat of the blood orcs? Will you slay him quickly to stop his noise, or will you simply leave the room? Right, so I'm not sure if I like eating orc, but I don't know. Blood orcs? I don't know. It doesn't sound like something very savory to eat, does it? It sounds like it was a little bit nasty. Right, options. I'll just put up my options here on the map regardless. So we have 420, 25, and 138. So we have eat, kill, leave. The most basic choices of everyday life. Right, so I'm going to try eating the blood orcs, see if they actually are edible. I'm not so sure about that. You settle down on the floor and begin to feast on the fleshy legs of the first blood orc. The taste is not pleasant, but you are hungry. The bearded human continues to stumble around the room, talking in an excited tone. Eventually he comes close to you and trips over the body of the other blood orc. His hand scrapes against your back and he shivers with horror when he feels the scales and spines. He rises to his knees and begins to feel your neck and head. You are somewhat bemused by this and allow him to continue. But when his fingers rub across your mouth and feel your sharp fangs, he cannot contain himself any more. Before he can even utter a scream, he faints and slumps to the ground beside you. You finish your meal. Add 4 stamina points. So plus 4 stamina. He does sort of. This person seems like he sort of knows me in a way. Maybe he knows something about me. Turn to 138, which is the same as to leave. So that is over here. 138. You turn south outside the door and head down to the next door. There is no other way onwards. You open the door, turn to 15, and that is 15 down here. Okay. All is silent as you enter. The room is large with a high ceiling and a musty smell permeates the air. There are 4 doors leading from the room and one in each wall. Maybe this is... I have reason now. Maybe I should have a look at the map, by the way. The one I picked up quite early, or what I think is a map. So before I go on there, I'm just going to have a look at 337. See what it says. Okay, so it says Svint furf up ips ipwubwuf ebfnef bepnugdvi lti fot huf ek jimfeb pot blub ndab die chips risp no bumps to strip vsup fjunchjef niet fed jerf giptensjop for slbipnims besapven schium fnjote upu brufesvint fnschvet povent Furt bekvebab. Feril plus omnis op voor free. Ipfum stut flan pethwubs abendaf ne freth fevend vergripend uitpum junip fujb ribnambra vetpos cap tubendarf flablubs kapstem jungd avirub ngip first. The feb reft feb first tip food. That must be important because it's in italics. I pwumstuf yund if sagt neptipingi feb first. And then, even more important, because it's in capitals, pnon pob subspund umst ut fjeb feb pfund. His easy fast fetchke fort et wird benutzt ahab sabfnet the she see if stupion nicht ip wumstivs chef der jengi schip nopradjefien fab fimpt. Underneath this writing is more, but written in a different style. Vib per up fokkenbulf dugv. Fulb gnfmdimp njefjepfjosh lafvirknip. Wingdfja flimft. That looks important as well. Okay. So if this is supposed to make sense to me, does that mean that am I intended to actually try to decipher this language, the way that it's written? I wonder. Okay. That's what's useful. All is silent as you enter. Let's go back to this. The room is large with a high ceiling and a musty smell permeates the air. There are 4 doors leading from the room, one in each wall. A long table stands in the middle of the room, and on it is a short stick with a metal head lying next to some small spikes. Hammer and spikes. Well, there are always hammer and spikes in these games, and most of them you don't actually even use them for anything. This is evidently a workroom of some sort. In one corner of the room you find the products of the work carried on here. 2 tall and thin wooden boxes, almost as tall as you are leaning against the wall. They are standing next to a hole in the wall just above floor level, which is wide enough to fit one of the boxes through. You puzzle over this for some time. What is this, a crematorium or something? What do you want to do? Have a look inside the boxes, investigate the hole in the wall, or ignore what you see? Okay, so options. I'm going to put them up here actually, just to make sure I have enough space for whatever else might happen further down. 2, 1, 7, 3, 1, 9, and 4, 3, 6. It's either look, hole, or ignore. I'm going to have a look inside the boxes. 217. You step over to the 2 boxes and shake one of them. Something soft and heavy bumps about inside. This arouses your curiosity, and you search for a means of opening the box, but none is apparent. In your frustration, you tip the box over and it crashes to the ground. Your attention focuses on the wider end as a splitting sound from within the box gets louder. Suddenly a crack appears in the wood, then another. Finally, the front of the box smashes apart and your eyes widen as they catch sight of the hideous thing within. A human shape appears, or rather something resembling a human corpse, but it is not dead, as its thin lips are slowly curling back to reveal sharp teeth and a forked tongue. In an instant, the creature suddenly sits bolt upright and turns its head towards you. Its eyes flick open. Wapaj stupt verstep fothvek vers fjutjvitus. Flippel uxvertip verfeip wudp blub a yuthi. Wup taib wup und oven de frustbund. Nupt fem jant ruffer yuthip rubfek fesp fep oj berubd. Ambrath fememster. Ip vumef stuf et vugtut for respected tet the feslif fotef. Feven fadam day up wumf stub femt fet på flat fjerd. Put up ekfratseert chefs. The creature's eyes fix on onto your own. They glow white, and you find you cannot break from the gaze. When its eyes finally close, you feel strangely light-headed, as if in a trance. You step away from the corner and head towards the door in the east wall. Did it just give me instructions? You open it, step through, and it closes behind you. Only then do your thoughts return to normal. But you are far from normal. You have been cursed, and until you're able to find someone who can remove the curse, your initial skill has been reduced by 2 points. Ooh. Okay, that's pretty bad. So minus 2 skill. And initial stamina by minus 5 star. If your current skill and stamina points exceed these limits, you must reduce them as necessary. So my maximum, my stamina is now 14, and my initial stamina is now 17 temporarily, and my skill is 9 temporarily, which means, of course, that I don't need to reduce my stamina, but I can't get it any higher than 17. Okay. So that seems like a very bad idea. I'm just going to put a... that's actually the first thing that I've done that I'm definitely sure I should not be doing. I'm sure there are more of those as we go along. Right. 436. So that is the same as this one over here. So I'm going like... So 436. You have 4 doors to choose from. Will you try the door in the east wall, the west wall, the north wall, or the south wall? Where do all the 4 doors come from? Oh, that many doors. Right, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 doors. So we have 49, 409, 262, or 201. Let's do like so. And that is east, 409 is west, 262 is north, and 201 is south. Okay. I'm going to try the east door in that case. I'm going to go with the lowest number, actually 49. The passage leads east. A short distance ahead, you arrive at a rocky bridge across a deep chasm. Far below, you can hear the sloshing of a slow-moving river, and you step up to the edge of the bridge to get a better look. A disgusting smell is coming up from the river, and as this hits your nostrils, you stagger a few paces backwards. But this is the only way on. The bridge is narrow and wet from the moisture in the air. No doubt it is slippery too. Nevertheless, you have no choice. You're not very good at turning back in this game, are you? You hold your breath and step onto the bridge, but halfway across you lose your footing on the slippery bridge. Test your luck. So, of course, I didn't lose any luck in my previous encounter when I got cursed, which is good, I suppose. 4, 5, 7, luck. 60, unlucky. Luck is 8. I roll 8. Luck goes down to 7, and I go to 457. You regain your footing and hurry across the bridge to the other side. Shaken by your near accident, you continue until you arrive at a side passage on the right. You do not like the look of the side passage, so you continue eastwards. Turn to 122. Okay, so we have 122. You follow the passage eastwards, peering ahead as the glowstones flick on to light your way. Eventually you arrive at 2 doors and you listen for any clues as to what may be beyond. No noise comes from behind the door in the north wall, but there are definite sounds coming from behind the door in the east wall. A heavy breathing is unmistakable and is interrupted by loud snorts. This sounds ominous. If you wish to try the door in the north wall, turn to 154. If you decide to charge the door in the east wall, turn to 263. Okay. So, 2 options. 2 doors again. 1, 5, 4 or 2, 6, 3. So that is east or north. No, I'm not going to do the one in the east wall. So 263. Okay. The door shudders under your charge, but does not open. Lose 1 stamina point. Okay, so minus 1 stamina, which is now down to, let's see, 13. You try again, and this time the bolt is torn from the frame. The door flies open and you step into the room, ready for the creature inside. The room itself has a door in each wall. Scattered around one corner is an untidy pile of bones. In another corner is a half-eaten human carcass. Standing over the carcass and evidently annoyed that its meal has been disturbed, is a bulky creature with a hairy face, razor-sharp teeth, and wild eyes. As you enter, it turns to attack, and you must resolve your battle with a manic beast. So we have a 7/8 creature. The manic beast is so called for its tremendous bursts of rage. Each time you inflict a wound on the manic beast, its anger will rise for the next attack round, and you must add 2 to the dice roll when it rolls for attack strength. It will retain the bonus for the next. If you win it again during this next attack round, it will retain the bonus for the next round. But if you do not, its temper returns to normal and the bonus is lost. If you defeat the manic beast, turn to 209. So we have quite a little tough battle on our hands, because I have now got 9 and 13. And the manic beast is 7/8. So I've got a 2 skill point advantage as we begin. He rolls 6, I roll 10, and that means he is dead because I rolled doubles. Yeah, that could have gone much worse. Okay. 209. I like that. I like that doubles thing. You may, if you wish, regain your strength by waiting for a few moments in the room before continuing. You can pass the time by feasting on either of the dead creatures. Which looks the tastiest, the manic beast or the human carcass? Or would you ignore the food and simply leave the room? Well, the manic beast is fresher, I suppose. Not sure if that counts for anything. Let's see. So 2 options. 231 beast or 249 human or 293. Let's see, 293. Just leave. I'm gonna see if I can eat the human maybe. So 249. You tuck into your meal. The meat is rather tough, as it is no doubt several days old. But while you are eating, something catches your attention. Tied around the human's waist, you find a small leather pouch which contains 2 gold pieces, which I know what is now, apparently. You may take these with you. So I've now got gold 2. You gain 4 stamina points from the meal, which takes my stamina back up to my current maximum of 17. Your attention is also captured by 2 glass flasks lying by the side of the unfortunate human. Though they have been battered, in the struggle, they are not broken, and each contains a colored liquid. If you would like to drink the green liquid, turn to 318. If you prefer to drink the blue liquid, turn to 350. If you wish to drink neither, you may continue by turning to 293. So, he's got potions. So we've got options. Let's just move those over here now. And also I can go to 293, but I can also now do green liquid 318, green, blue 350, blue. Green or blue, green or blue. I'm going to go with green, see what happens. 318. You put the bottle to your mouth and gulp down the liquid. Almost immediately you begin to feel strength flowing through your body. You have discovered and drunk a potion of strength, and it takes effect quickly. You may restore your stamina to its initial level. Now continue by turning to 293. So that is stamina equals init, which is not really helpful for me, of course, because I'm at my initial level, or my corrected initial level. At least I know for the future that that is the stamina potion. Okay, so 293. You leave the room through a door in the east wall. The door opens into a dingy corridor, which is quite short and ends at a wooden door. When you listen at the door, you can hear conversation rising and falling in pitch, as if 2 or 3 creatures or humans were locked into a long discussion. This is your only way onwards. Will you try the door and attempt to creep slowly into the room, or will you attempt to surprise whatever is inside by charging into the room with claws drawn? And this is where I think I'm going to change my page of my map. So 293 is going to be the start now of my next page. And I think it just started raining. So yeah, okay. Right, so 2 options, and we have so 276 creep or 66 charge. I'm gonna just charge into the room. What's the worst that can happen? You fling open the door and rush into the room, snarling viciously, ready to take on the creatures you heard inside. But the scene within is not what you expect. Turn to 161. Okay, this is I'm intrigued. 161. The room is roughly circular, with doors in the north, south, and west walls. Around the walls and in between the doors are dark arches, a total of 6, which are large enough for you to enter, but from your position it is impossible to know how deep they are. The voices which you heard earlier have stopped, as if your entrance has surprised whoever or whatever was talking. There is no sign of any living creature in the room. You step into the center and you are startled when the door slams shut behind you. You must now decide what to do. Will you leave the room through one of the doors or stay to investigate the room further? Right, that is interesting. So 405, leave. Or investigate, 104. Investigate. I'm going to investigate, obviously. So 104. You glance from arch to arch, trying to decide whether to investigate them. The stillness is unnerving. Whatever happened to the voices you heard? As if in answer to your question, a sound drifts out from one of the alcoves. Fuf, rechefut. Plumfep vref gefjepu, wubntat polv bernapfu gefutair chiftens ein ifs verpirpt. De poi plumpt fob van fristben at verms vnab guf. Pefrup piast jert nepfus, pefkat frept lolb gfeb. Kryga gewonosu gimst bestalig not. Vanoik. What about this? Is that better? Ah, yes. I can tell you understand me. Look, I can help you. Maybe you would like me to direct you to a tasty morsel. 2 fat hobbits. Or shall I tell you about he who knows all your secrets? I speak, of course, of Jaradan Mar. Come, talk to me. You are stunned to silence by the voice speaking to you in your own tongue. It is inviting you towards one of the arches. Will you enter and speak to the being within, or are you suspicious of this strange voice? If you enter the arch and talk to the owner of the voice, turn to 323. If you wish to leave, turn to 405. I'm going to try talking to this person. 323. It's the first conversation I've ever had, basically, so... You are intrigued by the voice and find yourself strangely attracted to it. It guides you towards one of the central arches in the east wall. Come closer so I may speak to you in private. No, not that arch. This one. That's right. Have no fear. I will tell you of the all-knowing one and tell you where you will find some juicy hobbits. Just a little further. It is so long since I have enjoyed the company, and I do so love to find out what happens in the outside world. You pass through the arch and look around. When your eyes have adjusted to the light, you can see that you are standing in a short tunnel, which ends several paces ahead in a dead end. There are no glowstones, but a glistening sheen covers the ceiling. At the end of the short passage is a shape which you can just make out. It appears to be human, sitting on the floor and leaning against the wall, a tattered cowl over its head. A leather flagon stands at its feet. Come closer, says the voice. My hearing is not good. Can I offer you a drink? Would you approach the figure or would you try another arch? Now, this sounds like it's a trap, doesn't it? Absolutely a trap. Okay, so another arch, 220, or approach the figure for 39. I'm still quite intrigued though. I'm still curious what would happen next. 220 is arch or approach. So I'm against my better judgment. I'm actually going to approach the figure because I'm curious to find out what's happening. 439. You growl suspiciously and step closer to the figure. The spines on your back are bristling and every muscle is tense. You extend one arm just far enough to hook a claw under the ragged cowl and flick it aside. But beneath the cowl is not what you were expecting. The sight of the rotten head with its gaping eye sockets makes you stagger back in fright. An evil laugh resounds through the air, coming not from the figure, but from the glistening chatter matter hanging from the ceiling. Having snared you into its lair with its ability to speak in many tongues, it now drops from its perch to cover you with its sticky web-like body. While you struggle in vain inside the living slime, it releases its deadly poison, which will paralyze you. As your struggles subside, the chatter matter begins to digest your tasty body. You will get no further. And that is how it ends, which means that you definitely do not do that. Okay, so that is the end. And yeah, okay, so that is the end of my first playthrough. Maybe I'll just do a little transition now. So I'm going to do like this. And yeah, I'm quite fascinated by this book because it is so completely different to anything else. Which I really like. It's got a backstory or sort of some background history, world building stuff, which I've been going on about a lot lately in my other videos about writing a game book. And it's got heaps of atmosphere. It's got a very fascinating structure, and of course the concept itself of not knowing what's going on or even being in control of yourself at the start of this, or not knowing what people are saying, is a truly fascinating one. And I suppose in a way it also can make you philosophize a little bit about free will and things like that, which is nice. I quite like that. So yeah, it's a really, really good book so far, and I think this is definitely going to go down as one of my favorites. It just is so cool. Okay. And also this makes me really look forward to playing Sorcery one day, because I always liked Steve Jackson's books the best. I mean, the ones that he wrote himself on his own. Because he's always pushing the envelope a bit. He's always trying something new. Every new book of his, he's trying something new. It isn't just repeating the same thing over and over, which is what Ian Livingstone mostly does, and of course all his other writers that sort of copy that kind of style. So I really like this. I think this is best one so far. It seems anyway from the beginning. So yeah, very excited to continue. Now of course. as you're watching this episode, it's not going to be that long since the previous episode on YouTube that was published on YouTube. But the fact of the matter is, actually, it's been more than 3 weeks, I think, now since last time I recorded an episode, because I recorded a few extra ones and I spread them out through summer now, when I wasn't recording much. I don't know how my recording schedule is going to be for the next few weeks. I will try to catch up and have enough content to post twice a week, but for the time being, I think it's going to be one episode of Fighting Fantasy a week, which is Tuesdays usually. And then because I have to do lots of other stuff as well, I really have to do lots of other stuff as well. So yeah, so as you're watching this, it may be a whole week from the previous episode, which was a Fighting Fantasy Roulette, and it may be a whole week until the next one. I don't know for sure yet. You will notice. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed playing this. It's such a fascinating concept that is made into a game book in this particular one that is just so different to anything else, and I love it. So yeah. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.